Good evening. I'd like to reconvene the open session of the Mount Diablo Unified School District Board of Education meeting. Today is January 22nd, 2025. All board members are present, and we've been joined by our student trustee, Trustee Ochoa. Would you please stand? First, I have to read the land agreement.
Okay, folks, we're ready to start, please.
6.1, land acknowledgement. We recognize that the Mount Diablo Unified School District sits on the territory of the Confederated Villages of the Lasan, the ancestral and unceded land of the Bay Miwok and the Northern Yokot, and the successors of the sovereign Verona Band of Contra Costa County. As members of the Mount Diablo Unified School District community, it is vitally important that we not only recognize the history of the land on which we learn, but also we recognize that the land we inhabit and learn on is the ancestral land of these people who are alive and flourishing members of the Mount Diablo Unified School District and the broader Bay Area community today. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll indulge me a moment, I had some eye surgery this week, and I apologize for wearing dark glasses, but it helps me rest my eyes between the periods that I have the glasses off. So it's not that I will be looking at all of you as you come to the microphone or as you make presentations, but I will need the glasses at certain periods of time. So we'll move on to item 6.3, review and potential approval of the minutes for the board meeting held January 8th, 2025.
Madam Chair, I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
So we have a motion by Trustee Mason with a second by Trustee Nzewi on item 6.3, the approval of the board minutes for January 8th. Any discussion? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. That motion is adopted, 5-0-0-0. For the next item, 6.4, review and potential approval of the agenda. Dr. Clark, any
Yes.
changes?
Yes, Madam President, I would like to move item 12.3, and I would like to move that in front of public comment, 8.1. So that's the only change that we are requesting.
Madam President, I move that we approve the agenda with moving item 12.3 to above 8.1.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Trustee Count with a second by Trustee Mason to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
And that motion is adopted on a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from Trustee Ochoa. The next item is 7.0, report from closed session. 7.1, negotiations. We received information from staff regarding its work with our represented employees. On 7.2, discipline, dismissal, release, or reassignment. In closed session by a vote of 5-0 with no abstentions, the board took action to approve the resignation of one employee per the second separation agreement. On 7.3, I have 2 items to report. On JT versus Mount Diablo Unified School District, OAH case number 24-1018, the board met in closed session with legal counsel to discuss a matter of existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 5495 6.9 by a vote of 5-0 in the matter of this student JT versus Mount Diablo Unified School District, Office of Administrating Hearing Case 2024-1018. The board approved a settlement agreement up to the stipulated amount and according to the settlement terms. On the second item, the board met in closed session with the legal counsel to discuss a matter of existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 5495 6.9 by a vote of 5-0 on the Bernstein versus Mount Diablo Unified School District Contra Costa Superior Court case number C-24-01544. The board gave direction and settlement authority to the general counsel. And that includes the report on closed session. And now I believe we have adjusted the agenda, so we have the privilege of enjoying a presentation.
Yes, Madam President and members of the board, I would like to bring before you tonight a collaborative effort between parents organization, the school, the maintenance department, and the district to talk about a playground improvements at Sequoia Elementary School. I just want to state that we have aging facilities in Mount Diablo, just like so many other schools in California, and sometimes we don't have the funding to make some of these improvements in a timely manner. And so when we can have collaborative efforts like what we have here tonight, we always want to encourage those. So I'm going to turn this over to Melanie Kozlow, who really worked and collaborated with the team on this. So Ms. Kozlow, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Clark, and our
time
audience.
limits are still in place, even though even though you got kids there with you.
So I'm going to let everybody, thank you so much for seeing us early. We always appreciate when our students can come and join us at the board. And this is really exciting for me because this is the first time for me. So I'll let everyone introduce themselves as we come up. We're going to do a shared presentation, but this is very exciting. And we plan to take what we've learned through this experience and go out to our other parent groups and be able to collaborate as well. So Sequoia Elementary School. So just a very quick overview. We are going to review the steps taken to enhance the elementary school facilities through collaborative work. Obviously, this is a front section of Sequoia Elementary School as well as the playground because that's really where our projects are focused. Just very quickly, one idea became, which we'll touch on a little bit later, the slides, one idea became all of these projects. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our Parent Association president.
Hi, my name is Elise Scaletto. I have the privilege of serving as the president for Sequoia Parents Association, which we call SPA. The name makes it just a little more fancy in our opinion. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Aaron Edel, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but I really can't talk about this project without talking about him as well, because the history started years ago before my current third graders were even at Sequoia. The Parents Association realized that our playground really had no shade. And when I say really had no shade, I mean it's literally in the middle of the playground area with nothing around it, and the buildings don't even provide much shade. So they decided to raise money for it at our annual gala, which they did. But as the story goes, this was 2019, and we know what happened not long after that. And so by the time I got there, in 2021, Aaron asked me to take this on with him because they really hadn't made any progress. And he thought I was the most pleasantly persistent person he knew, is what he said. And persistent I was, and it took me another year and a half to figure out that Melanie was who I needed to talk to. We ran into each other at a parent advisory committee meeting, and she was like, okay, yeah, I'll have a meeting with you. So we did. And what started as we need a shade structure, we realized a shade structure freestanding was not actually what made the most sense. And so through working with her, we realized we also wanted an outdoor area for teachers to do lessons. We're an international baccalaureate school. Our teachers are amazing and they do things very differently, and they needed the space to do that. Our playground structure was actually in pretty good shape as far as the poles and structures go, but it really needed what I call a glow up. It was sun faded because there was no shade, and it just needed to be jazzed up. It needed to fit older kids. And through this, we also walked it with Melanie, with Paul, with Becky, the principal, and we realized it actually needed quite a bit of love. But luckily, Melanie saw us for what we were, is that we really wanted to spend this money to make it better. And she helped us find a solution that checked all of those boxes. And now what she got is I have her phone number. And so I have big future plans as well. And the gala is coming up in just a month. So I'm sure we will be talking soon about some other things that we can be doing. But to kind of show you just generally what we're looking at our playground, we have these solar panels that currently just provide mud for us. But by paving under them, we're actually going to be able to provide an outdoor learning space, like I said, an area for our kids to eat lunch that is completely shaded. And it's also near our garden, which is one of the big, beautiful places on our campus. And on that, we are also going to be able to provide picnic tables. Because we're saving money by partnering with Melanie to use district funds, we also were able to just accomplish so much more of this than we would have if we were paying for it on our own. So now I'm going to turn it over to our lovely principal to talk about how they're going to use the space.
Thank you, President, and good evening, trustees and Superintendent Clark. So I just wanted to share that there was I have to change this. There's a connection to the curriculum here. So when we started talking about this, one of the things that we were looking at as a staff is our relative targets and how we did on our CASP testing. And as you can see, people did pretty well. This is our third grade from last year, but we had one area that was in red, and that was our geometric measurement for area. So when we started talking about this, Ms. Ricard, who's a member of our math instructional leadership team, and I decided that we would use her class as a lab to kind of task this problem of how we would arrange the picnic tables in the newly paved area that is going to exist. So that's kind of the background of how we got the students involved, and I think they're next.
Hi, I'm Nora Jazier, a third grader at Sequoia Elementary. I am in Miss Ricard's class. She gave us a problem. Our school needs a covered place for our students to eat outside. The solar panels created a cover, but are a muddy mess all year long because they were built on our grass, but the sprinklers still go off. If it is paved, we can have a covered space for our picnic tables. We need enough picnic tables to seat 200 students at a time. This will be great because we can eat outside under cover and go straight to recess. We figured out how many picnic tables we needed. Each table seats 8 people, so we divided 200 by 8 equals 25 picnic tables. We measured the perimeter of the area under the solar panel back to the track. Our tape measure was only 33 feet long, so we used the students to mark the length and add them together. From that, we figured out the length and the width of the space. We then used a calculator to multiply the length times the width. We cut out a model 1 inch for every foot. Then we cut out our picnic table 1 inch for every foot also and placed them on the model. Here is our model. Thank you for helping us with this project.
Turn it back over to Elise here.
So the way that we really started this was we first had a meeting. It was in March of last year where Melanie and Paul came and they met with us with our principal, and we were able to walk the area. And it started as we thought we might replace the whole structure, but actually by looking at it, we realized that, again, like I said, the poles and all of that were actually in really good repair. It was just some of the other things that were needed. And when we're looking at a play structure, especially one for as many students as we have, as well as we want it to appeal to not just first graders, but also to fifth graders, we realized that we have a lot of space, as you can see on there, where we actually decided we could add another structure. And when you're talking about structures of playground, there are active spaces and social spaces. And we had a lot of active space, but we didn't have a lot of social space. So by adding an additional structure, we're also able to provide some shade on there and a place for the older kids to sit and chat and do as older kids do. So you can see here, that was our old structure. This is what we're going to be putting in. So you can see that there will be replacement of the little top tassel things. I'm really good at that part, obviously. And new slides, which we picked Sequoia Blue because why not? And then also the new climbing structure that will also have some area under it where they can hang out. We think that they will be really excited to see it, and it'll make the play structure that much more approachable for all of them.
So this is just a diagram that shows the space. And as you can see, that picture of our basketball hoops, they look like I could have played on them when I was in elementary school. They're a little worn out. And so we're happy to be replacing those. And that's indicated on the map where they are. And let me just tell you that we have about 600 students who go to our school. We run three recesses, 3 lunches, and 2 afternoon recesses. It's busy. The playground is used like 24/7. So that's really exciting that we'll have new basketball going on there. And then additionally, we're going to put in another tetherball court because we use tetherball as one of the stations in PE, and we have 33 kids per grade in the upper grades, and it's kind of hard to have a rotation when you only have 2 poles. So with 3 poles, that's going to help them out. And as well, you can see how faded our map is there. There's actually 2 west coasts there. That's hopefully not a future picture of the rupture of the San Andreas Fault, but rather just a wear and tear on the map. So we're going to relocate that and fix that up so it looks like it should.
Thank you. And just sort of to round us out, just as a reminder, we started with one idea, shade on campus, and we have now been able to collectively put together the magnitude of projects that we're going to complete with a timeline of around spring break. We know that we're going to go a little bit beyond just the week that we have off, but we're working with all of our vendors in order to have all of the work take place around the same time. The playground structure renovation, the soft surface repair that needs to take place, the paving, by having the paving underneath the shade structure for the outdoor learning space, and then by adding the track sides, which are now sort of like a combination of like dirt and really, really, really old cinder. By paving those, the site's going to actually get like a decent running track, which we see at other elementary schools. So it's not to say that this doesn't come without cost, but because of the way that the Sequoia Parent Association fundraised, had a decent budget, had a really good budget, they're able to take on quite a bit of cost. But I don't want to state that it's not also collaborative with the district. And so when we look at our largest cost, it's that play structure renovation. Elise and I, Paul Lunho, my maintenance manager, Becky, and our play structure manufacturer looked at the different options. We could have replaced the entire structure for around $300,000, but by doing the maintenance repair model where we are renovating or increasing play spaces to the existing structure, we were able to keep the cost down at around $100,000. By taking a look at our deferred maintenance budget, where the maintenance department has responsibility to keep these structures up, we were able to take on about $10,000 of that cost, while Parent Association is able to take on the heftier side of about 97,000. And then just to be very transparent, what we're looking at as far as other costs, there's picnic tables, which will possibly be around $25,000. We've received several proposals, and we're just looking for that best bang for our buck. And we will be looking at how much of that the Parent Association can pay for. We also have outdoor, learning desires, and so we have some budget for that as well. Asphalt paving is going to be somewhere between $35,000 to $60,000, and the reason there's that large sort of spread is how much under rock are we going to do based on what the space is going to be utilized for, and then maintenance repairs. Those are all done within the maintenance regular budget by our people at our cost under our maintenance. And so, yes, there is an expense to that, but it's really sort of looped into our just annual salaries and that sort of thing. And so by collaborating, we're able to schedule this for this upcoming spring break, and we're really just sort of ecstatic by it. And the entire reason that we wanted to come and share not only is the excitement of it, but also just because we know by our relationship that we now have with Sequoia Parent Association, that there are so many parent groups out there that are here to support our campuses, to support our students, to support our principals, and they don't know where to start. And then ironically got a call from our lovely principal over at Walnut Acres on Friday, and it was the perfect time because their parent association needs to have time with us and didn't know where to start and what to do. And I was like, we're coming to the board on Wednesday to share. So thank you so much for your time.
Any questions, comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say well done. It's so wonderful to see this kind of collaboration with the community and with the parents, and coordinating with the curriculum and our students too. That's just fantastic. I have two questions. One is, are you coordinating with Pleasant Hill Community Service Day in some of this? Because I feel like I've been on the ground painting those maps at community service days at various schools before. And then my other question is for our student, how you felt being able to use math for something, for like a big project like this.
I think it was like pretty fun. As like our class doing all the math and figuring it out, and then yeah, that's all I can think of.
I would just add that I love this collaborative because all of the people that are going to be using it or appreciating it are in. So often they do projects and now, oh, I wish I'd have known we could have done this. And I love the kids' involvement because they will now take ownership of it and make sure it's taken good care of, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I literally handed them the problem and I handed them the books and I delegated it to them like I would to any staff member with Ms. Ricard's oversight, of course. But I think some of the math work that we've been doing based on the work that we've been doing as the math instructional leadership team with the district has really helped the students to be able to take on a problem like that and not feel intimidated. And I think Nora would agree that when you guys were given that problem, it was not all that different than some of the problems that you solve regularly, right? Yeah. So they were kind of used to an open-ended problem that they could work together on. So it's a great collaboration. Thank you for hearing our presentation.
I applaud all of you as well for the collaboration and the work, and it makes my heart sing. I do have a logistical question for Melanie. I recall a couple of years ago that the playground flooded with a lot of mud. Will the picnic tables be portable so that they can be moved, or will they be anchored? And then is there a plan should you need to move mud again?
In part of that budget cost that we have, the 35 to 60,000, we will be taking care of the drainage off of the field that's causing that current muddy mess. If the creek should flood again, we would just have to deal with that at this point. But we do know that the city of Pleasant Hill has done quite a bit of mitigation work to prevent that in the future. should we get the floods that we had. Our intention is to anchor them into the asphalt so that they
Mhm.
don't walk away.
Right.
However, they can be easily unanchored so that we can deal with any future cleanup if we needed to. But we think some of the mitigation work will prevent that.
You think of everything. Thank you. Well, that was a fun presentation, wasn't it? Okay, we're ready for public comment. The public may address the board regarding any item not on the agenda. The public comment will also be allowed on each specific agenda item prior to the board action thereon. And when you make a comment under this section of the agenda, 8.1, the board cannot respond directly to your comments, but know that we are listening and we will work with staff regarding your comments. We have 6 cards, so we will proceed. The first is Maddie Dixon. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Maddie. I go to Mount Diablo Middle School. I am in 6th grade, and this is about a band teacher because I play the violin. His name is Mr. Woodcock, and he recently got fired. I don't exactly know why. I don't have all the details, but I think he should come back because he's only been here half a year with us, and it's not right. I think that he should. It's not right that he should be fired like that and replaced with a new teacher right away like that. I think they should at least let him stay the rest of the year. We have been doing a petition in our school to try to have him back. We have over 600 signatures for that, and we are trying to get him back for being our band teacher. And when we heard the news about that, we were all very devastated because he's an amazing band teacher and no one can replace him like he did. And no one will be as fun or funny as he did or was. And I love the games we played with him in band, like how we played music to learn. We played games to learn about music. And he was there to help whenever we didn't know how to play it or anything. And if there's a new teacher there, they won't be able to understand us how he did. And I think the part of the reason he was fired was because he wasn't like playing, like teaching us, I guess, the best, even though I've learned so much from him in my band. And now I play the violin amazingly. And I just feel like he shouldn't get fired like that. A lot of people in our school are trying to get him back, and so is the like principal and all the people in our district are trying to do whatever they can so he will come back. And I just wanted to say, I hope we can try to get him back for all that because he's an amazing band teacher.
Thank you very much, Maddie. You were very well spoken. Thank you. Next is Edward Cadigan.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's hard to follow Miss Maddie. She did a great job. I'm Edward Cadigan. I grew up in Walnut Creek, attending Bancroft Elementary, Foothill Middle School, and Northgate High School. I was blessed with going to public school with some of the same friends each and every year. I've built lifelong friendships, including a brotherhood with some friends such as Luis Quinones and Jerome Latorre, who I've known since kindergarten. Excuse me. Related to that, I'm here to talk about the cohort transfer. We live in the Carriage Square community in Walnut Creek. My oldest daughter attended Bancroft, where my youngest daughter attends today. And she was transferred to Foothill Middle School, where she is currently an 8th grader. She is just as lucky as I was to have a strong group of smart, loyal friends. And in 2018, Mount Diablo Unified School District recognized the importance of keeping children together through their education journey and listed our neighborhood as a priority cohort transfer. Then in 2023, Mount Diablo Unified School District gave us priority cohort reassurances, and that reassurance allowed us to make the decision to remain in our home, not sell it, and move across town. Recently, my daughter did inter-district transfer, and she did not get accepted into Northgate, which we are looking forward to appealing. I'm here today to voice my displeasure about the assurances that I don't believe were followed. There's tremendous anxiety. Sorry. There's a lot of anxiety in our house right now. My daughter's entering what are supposed to be some of the most exciting times of her life. And right now, she's about to enter those alone without her friends, which is really disheartening. Apologize. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Christy Paluzian. Hello, Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy Paluzian. I'm a current Northgate High School parent and Horizons parent, and I have a former student that graduated from Northgate High School. My students also attended Bancroft Elementary and Foothill Middle School. I was part of the Bancroft Parent Fix the Split, which is trying to fix the split feeder pattern that Bancroft has years ago. And over the course of 3 years, we met with many board members who are still here today, thank you, and also our current superintendent at the time, Dr. Meyer, and student services. And for those of you who don't know what a feeder pattern that split is, not every school has a split feeder pattern, and how ideally it's supposed to work. For example, if you have an elementary school, 50% of your students in the attendance area would go to one middle school and 50% would go to the other middle school. In the 20 plus years I've lived in our community, the attendance area for Bancroft doesn't work that way, unfortunately. It seems 90% of our students matriculate to one middle school and less than 10% go to the other. So it's very lopsided. I'm talking about the Carriage Square area. And so in January 8th of 2018, our board unanimously voted on a priority after our superintendent did a study of split feeder patterns, and Bancroft was identified as one of 2 double split feeder patterns. And they came up with this idea of using the cohort priority within the inter-district transfer process. And how that worked is if there was room at the other school sites, then our students would be allowed through the transfer process to go with their cohort to those other school sites. And how that priority was supposed to be above program, and then below that was choice, which is what we were all using before that to try and keep our kids together, and those who didn't have sibling priority or employee site priority. So we were all trying to use this choice, and it didn't work. And I'm happy to say that I think this priority system had worked for 7 years. And then I just heard recently that one student from Bancroft, the 5th grader in the split area, did not get in to Foothill. 4 of the 2-way dual immersion students who were part of the program there are not going to be going to Foothill to continue the program. And then out of the 11 students who applied for transfers using the cohort for Foothill to Northgate, 8 did not get in. So what I'm asking the board is to take a look as to why this didn't work this time after it worked so well for 7 years, what's changed. And for the parents who wish to continue with their cohort, if they appeal, that you reconsider as long as there's space and allowing their students to continue with their cohort, because it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Zachary Zeliff. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Evening board, Superintendent Clark. I'm also here because of the cohort split, the Bancroft split. I have a son who is an 8th grader in Foothill Middle School, and he was also recently denied to continue on with his friends. And so we had to have a long conversation with him about that. We've moved here about 7 years ago. So his entire school career has been in the same school system with the same friends. And we also stayed where we live in the Carriage Square because we were made assurances that he would be able to continue with his friends. I come from going to school all through elementary, middle school, high school in the same school system, keeping the same friends, and I keep those friends today. And I know how important it is for, positive social interaction, growing up with your friends, having those for long-term relationships going forward, how important that is, especially when you go into high school and things get tough, right? And so also making a plea to please reconsider. We are going to, forget what's called, issue or send back I forget what the form was called.
Appeal.
Appeal, correct, sorry. We're also going to do that for an appeal. We are one of the 8 in the Carriage Square as well. So urge you to reconsider that if there's space as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Megan Heinen. Welcome, Megan.
Hi, Dr. Clark and members of the Mount Diablo School Board. I am also here to address the Bancroft split feeder pattern. I attended the dual immersion program at Bancroft Elementary, and I'm currently a student at Hill Middle School. Next year, I will be attending Northgate High School. I have always lived within the boundaries of all these schools. The reason I am here today is because I was very sad to learn that many of my closest friends, whom I've known since kindergarten, are not allowed to attend Northgate. I've spent 9 years building strong friendships with these classmates. I remember our early days in Miss Velasquez and Master Gomes' kindergarten class, writing in our journals in both English and Spanish. I remember planting sunflowers with my class in the Bancroft School Garden, and now we help each other at Foothill with Mr. Klein's Algebra 1 homework for hours on end. These are not just classmates, they are friends, the fabric of my childhood. Forcing students to be separated from their long-term friends and classmates after 9 years is deeply traumatic. All Bancroft students should have the opportunity to continue their education alongside their friends, both at Foothill and at Northgate. Thank you for your time and for considering the concerns of an 8th grader about her friends and classmates.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brett Haupt.
Good evening, Dr. Clark, members of the board, Council Member McDougall. I hope you're settling in these first few weeks. And oh, you took off your glasses.
Yes, I did.
I hope your eyes are healing up well this week. So I come to you today to talk about something that I see happening in my classroom. Really over the last few weeks, months, and especially the last couple of days. I am a 7th and 8th grade teacher at Sequoia Middle School, and I teach English, history, and journalism. And so a couple of questions that I've been getting the last few days in class are questions that I quite frankly can't answer. These questions revolve around the issues of what will happen to my family. If my parents are deported, will I still be able to remain a student here? Will I be split up from my parents, and so forth? And so I'm heartbroken by these questions that I can't fully answer to my students. I'm heartbroken for the anxiety that they feel and what they're going through. And I know that um, they're having a tough time focusing on what we need to focus on the classroom during this time. And so I come to you today to encourage Dr. Clark and the board to use your position, to use your pulpit to please make a strong and coherent statement, and to please come forward with a cohesive plan to address these issues and these anxieties for our community. I know that this has been discussed in many conversations throughout the district, many different school sites and administrators, and I'm happy that these conversations are happening, but I want you guys to guide us in this moment. I want you to be leaders in this moment, and I want you to show us the way in terms of no matter what any of us believe politically about what's happening right now, I think we all can agree that our schools deserve to be a place of safety and of comfort for all of our students. And I would really, and so many of us teachers and community members would really love and appreciate any type of leadership and direction that you can give us in terms of making sure that our schools are safe from any type of removal, ICE action, and that our students are there and don't have the anxiety put upon them and can thrive. Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for representing your students and showing how much you care for them. Our final speaker tonight is Laura Barnes. Laura? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Laura Barnes. I am a room parent for my daughter that is in kindergarten at Bancroft Elementary. I'm here for a couple of reasons. One, I'm just concerned of transparency issues with incidents that are going on in her classroom, and I just feel like my not only myself but the other mothers and parents are being kept in the dark about I hate to say it, but there's just disruption and the physical violence going on that's making things very uncomfortable. And given that we're already going into 100 days into the calendar year and there hasn't been any recourse for the person that's specifically causing these actions, it's becoming frustrating. And I just feel like we're being treated as mushrooms, being left in the dark about this whole issue. And it's becoming unfair, especially with the repercussions with my daughter coming back, even now imposing violence on her own little sister because she says, well, so and so can do it without a problem. And it's becoming a very huge issue. She doesn't want to go to school. She cries about, she fights me in the mornings. It's becoming a very, very, it's becoming a huge problem. Not only mentally on her, but psychologically on me too, to have her deal with these outbursts. And she shouldn't be having to deal with this as a 5-year-old. And I would just like to see that there is something that can be done for this instead of just letting time pass and just hope that everything just kind of hushes up and nothing happen. Things just kind of work out themselves, but obviously it's not. And I just want to know why somebody that's repeatedly causing persistent issues is technically allowed to have a Teflon coat, and it's just becoming unfair. And we just like some transparency on the issue of how we can solve these things. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public comment. Now we move on to 9.1, district organizations. At regular board meetings, a single spokesperson of each recognized district organization may make a brief presentation. Mrs. Ortega, welcome.
Good evening. I appreciate the footstool, but I'm not needed today. So, good evening, President Mayo, Dr. Clark, trustees, members of the audience. So it's good to see you. Just like Brett had shared, I also come today because it's been weighing on my heart, what's going on and what I'm hearing over the news. I just wanted to share with you that Medea believes we must protect our students in all times, but especially now, we must protect our immigrant students from those who would seek to harm them, their education, or their families. We want to work with the school district, and you know that's what I've been doing, to develop practical plans to protect the rights of our immigrant students and their families, to safely access public education by limiting support of immigration agency activity in or near our schools. I know that the district has a 2017 Safe Haven resolution that I hope we will be updating. The Mount Diablo Education Association, or Medea, has been working on compiling and sharing resources with our educators. They've been asking questions and making them available to the entire community on our website. Many of our resources have come from the California Attorney General and give legal guidance. We have presented resources to our union representatives because we know our educators are focused on the safety and well-being of all our students. And as Brett said, he needs guidance. And I just want to share a personal story with you. As a daughter of an immigrant mother and who lived in Avadio and San Diego as a child, I saw firsthand how immigrant officials swept through my neighborhood. Many of my friends just disappeared. Families I grew up with, I never knew what happened to them. And it still to this day, I don't know what happened to them, and it haunts me. This experience has come back to me, especially now. And I just wanted to say that our parents, our students, our families, we need to protect them. We need to make them feel safe and welcome. As a teacher, when I became an educator, that's who I became. I became their mama bear. And you know that our teachers would do that. My ask is, does the district or have a plan to have a parent informational meeting to address these immigration concerns? I know that Pittsburgh is doing this, as I'm a good friend with the Pittsburgh president. We share our information locally. So I just want to know if we are going to do something like that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're ready to move on to recognitions and resolutions. Item 10.1, review and potential approval of Resolution 2425-43 in recognition of National School Counseling Week. Dr. Clark?
Thank you very much, Madam President. Whereas school counselors and their service to students and school communities bring a unique combination of skills, knowledge, and expertise in the interrelated areas of educational development, social emotional well-being, college and career readiness, aptitude analysis, relationship building, trauma response, community partnerships, and more. Being now with timely significance, attentive to the manifestations of such by way to express gratitude, noting particular that whereas school counselors contribute vitally to students' academic, social, emotional, and career development, helping students to progress and to realize their full potential. Now, therefore, with due appreciation, the governing board of the Mount Diablo Unified School District proclaims and recognizes February 3rd through the 7th, 2025 as National School Counseling Week. Madam President, I leave this resolution in the hands of the board.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept Resolution 24/25-43.
Second?
So we have a motion from Mr. McDougall with a second by Mrs. Cound. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion recognizing National School Counseling Week passes with a 5-0-0-0 vote. Thank you. 10.2, potential approval of the resolution 2425-44 in recognition of February is Black African American History Month. Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Madam President. Whereas the deep-rooted intrinsic value of Black and African American history presents our educational institutions with an opportunity for recognition, teaching, and celebration. And whereas Mount Diablo Unified School District recognizes and celebrates the history and contributions of Black and African Americans who have been previously overlooked, misinterpreted, and undervalued in the curriculum of public education institutions. So whereas Black and African American history is continuously being made, and concurrently, classroom discussions that is courageous and encouraged in the Mount Diablo Unified School District as an essential function of student-centered wellness and education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mount Diablo Unified School District Governing Board proclaims the month of February as Black and African American History Month and encourages all schools to commemorate this occasion accordingly with the appropriate instructional materials, discussions, presentations, and projects. And be it further resolved that this resolution be distributed to all schools within the Mount Diablo Unified School District. Madam President, I'll leave this resolution in the hands of the board.
I move that we approve Resolution 2425-44 in recognition of February as Black and African American History Month.
I'll second that.
So for item 10.2, we have a motion by Trustee Nzewi with a second by Trustee Mason in recognition of February as Black African American History Month. Is there further discussion?
I have a comment.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I had an aha moment last Black History Month in learning and realizing and understanding that, especially in school, all we learn about Black history is what white people have approved for us to learn. And so there's a lot that's missing in our historical education of Black folks in the United States. And so I'd like to recommend for all of our educators and anyone who cares about having a more complete history, especially as we know that this history is on the verge of being erased potentially from public education, a fabulous book that is both inspiring and maddening at the same time for all the things we don't learn about, but inspiring again for all the things we don't learn about. And it's called Black AF History, The Unwhitewashed Story of America by Michael Harriot. And it's long because we do have a long history, but it is amazingly written and easy to read. And each chapter is a different moment in time. It starts from the beginning of Black folks in America. And it's the most it's maddening because I literally one day threw the book because, yeah. But inspiring because, oh, we did this, we did that, wow. And this occurs in the United States because of this particular Black person in history. So that's what I encourage for all of our educators, because not that you're going to get, the book is long, you're not going to get it. You don't have time to read it in preparation for this month, but in honor of this month, read it. So then next year, or actually, Black history should not be 1 month, 365 days a year. So the next month in March, you can just start with Black women's history as a part of Women's History Month.
Further comments? Mrs. Cowan?
Thank you so much, Trustee Nzewi, for that recommendation. I look forward to reading it. And also this has me thinking about on Martin Luther King Day at the NAACP breakfast in Pittsburgh, Dr. Francis was one of the speakers, and part of what was talked about that day was how oftentimes we learn about Dr. King, in a very sort of sanitized version of like, yes, he was just, well liked and agreeable, and civil rights just sort of magically happened. And so for us to really go deeper and understand and learn everything about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the types of struggles and things that he was fighting for that we still don't have in this country today, and that for much of what he was advocating for, he was actually a lot of people disagreed with him at the time, right? It wasn't just kind of this like magical thing that easily happened.
And he was assassinated.
Yes, and that. So yes, there's just so much to learn about so much of African American history. So thank you for your recommendation.
Thank you for your comments to both of you. Any further comments? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. So the resolution in support of February as Black African American History Month passes with a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from our student trustee Ochoa. 10.3, a resolution 2425-45 recognizing February as Career and Technical Education Month. Dr. Clark.
Great. Thank you, Madam President. Whereas February has been designated Career and Technical Education, CTE, month by the Association for Career and Technical Education. And whereas CTE offers students the opportunity to gain the academic, technical, and employability skills necessary for true career readiness. And whereas students in CTE programs participate in authentic, meaningful experiences that improve the quality of their education and increase their engagement and achievement. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of the Mount Diablo Unified School District proclaims the month of February as Career and Technical Education Month and urges all schools to become familiar with the services and benefits offered by the CTE programs in the community and to support and participate in these programs to enhance their individual work skills and productivity. Madam President, I leave this resolution in the hands of the board.
Madam President, I move to approve resolutions 24/25-45 recognizing February as Career and Technical Education Month.
Second.
So for item 10.3, we have a motion by trustee Mason with a second by trustee Cound. Is there further discussion on this item?
Just like to make a comment on this, that I'm impressed with the district program for career pathways.
Okay.
I've gone to one of these meetings, and there are, I'm hearing maybe 8 total in the next month. And it's really good to see that we're striving to improve the vocational options that are available to the students, because not everyone can go to college. So we want to make sure that we provide a responsible graduates in the career field. So I'm glad to see this happening.
Thank you. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. So for 10.3, which is recognizing February as Career and Technical Education Month, the vote is 5-0-0-0 with support from our student trustee Ochoa. The next resolution is 2425-46 for local assignment options, EC 4425.2. Dr. Clark.
Great, and we're going to have Mr. Sheehy present the next 2 items.
Yes, thank you. Ed Code authorizes the board to assign an employee holding a single subject or standard secondary credential to teach with his or her consent any subject in the departmentalized class in grades 5 through 8, provided that the teacher has completed 12 semester units or six upper division or graduate units of coursework in that subject. And so tonight we have one teacher before you in world history.
Your motion?
Madam President, I move to approve Resolution 2425-46, local assignment option EC 44258.2.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Count with a second by trustee Nzewi. Any further discussion? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that motion passes with a 5-0-0-0 vote and support from our student trustee. Mr. Sheehy, 10.5, Resolution 24/25-47.
Yeah, so Ed Code authorizes the board to assign any employee holding a valid teaching credential to teach with his or her consent a single subject class, which he or she has 18 semester units of coursework or 9 upper division or graduate coursework, or a multiple subject class if he or she holds at least 60 semester units equally distributed among 10 areas of a diversified major. And so tonight I have one teacher for Living Earth.
Thank you.
Madam President, I'd like to move that we accept Board Resolution 2425-47 for local assignment options.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So we have a motion from trustee McDougall with a second by trustee Mason. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And Resolution 24/25-47 is adopted on a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from our student trustee, Ochoa. 11.1, Dr. Clark.
Yes, we are very excited to review potential approval of classified personnel appointment, and we have from the Human Resources Department, Kim Bayana.
Good evening. Madam President and trustees and Dr. Clark, the Human Resources Department is bringing for the board's review and potential approval for the appointment of Nicole Caddis as the culinary manager with Food and Nutrition Services. Nicole comes to MDUSD with 17 years of experience in various food service operations. She's worked in hospitals, airline catering, nonprofit institutional setting, and college dining. Most recently, Nicole was the culinary supervisor and then interim culinary manager for the San Francisco Unified School District. Nicole holds an associate's degree in culinary arts and a bachelor's degree in hospitality and restaurant management. During Nicole's personal time, she enjoys traveling with her husband to discover places, taste different foods, and learn about their cultures. Her language of love is through food, and the kitchen is her playground. With that, I leave this appointment in the hands of the board.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I think we just were, none of us have the paper in front of us, so I move to approve the appointment of Nicole Caddis and as a food and nutrition service culinary manager.
Second.
So trustee Mason has made the motion. Trustee Nzewi has made the second. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. So Nicole Caddis is approved as a culinary manager. Is she with us tonight?
Not here tonight.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
Thank you very much. And welcome her most sincerely for us, please. All right. Congratulations. We're ready to move on to reports. Dr. Clark, 12.1.
Yep, so tonight we are going to have a presentation or basically we have a gentleman here who's open to questions around our audit, and it was submitted by Nigro, and I have Mr. Adrian Vargas, who will introduce our guest.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. So I have Jeff Nigro here today that will review our independent audit for the 23-24 fiscal year. So with that, I will turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you. Good evening, board. My name is Jeff Nigro. I'm the audit engagement partner with Nigro. We've just completed our second year of audit for the school district for 23-24. I want to talk briefly about the process of the audit. It's a year-long process. We start in actually this time of year, we're already planning your 24-25 audit. We start by going out and visiting a sampling of your school sites, all the way from elementary up through high school, alternative schools, and we audit the attendance procedures, making sure attendance is reported properly according to all the state guidelines. We also look at a sample of ASBs because ASBs have very unique accounting sort of practices and they're very decentralized. So we go out and look at a number of the schools and look at how transactions are being handled, receipts, disbursements. So we spend quite a bit of time looking at that. In the spring, we come out here to the district office and the books aren't closed yet. So there's no numbers to audit. So our focus that time of year is to first of all, look at internal controls and practices, best practices, checks and balances. But there's also numerous and every year growing by leaps and bounds state requirements because the state loves to give programs, money for programs with strings attached. And we get to be the ones who get to audit to make sure all those check boxes are checked and all the I's are dotted and T's are crossed. And so we begin as much of that work as we can during the spring interim visit. And then, as you know, you adopt your unaudited actuals in September after the district's had time to close the books. And that's when we come back in the fall and we actually start looking at the numbers, start vouching as much as we can. Obviously, we don't look at every single dollar. We have to look at a sampling. We have to obtain what we call reasonable assurance that the financials are not materially misstated. And so the result of all of that, and then once we finish field work, a lot of the work still happens back at the office. We do a lot of internal quality control review. We put the report together. And so the ultimate byproduct of all that is a report that you have here tonight, which is due by December 15th with the state controller's office. So it's been filed with them, with the county, Federal Audit Clearinghouse, CDE, all the required parties. Now, the result of all that is that we give an opinion on your financial statements, and the opinion is actually the primary objective of the audit. A lot of people don't realize that, but it is. And so our opinion is what we call unmodified. It's a clean opinion. That's what you want to get. You want to make sure that there's no material misstatements in the financial statements that you approved back in September. So clean opinion. The audit report, first 3 pages, pages 1 through 3, are our opinion letter. Now, there's more to the audit than that, obviously, but there's, like I said, there's a lot of compliance areas we have to look at. And so there's letters in the back that address that, that we looked at all these state programs and it lists all of them out, attendance accounting. We spend a lot of time not in the fiscal office. A lot of people think the audit is just us bothering your accounting staff, but there's things that we look at now that involve different departments and crossing over into ed services. So a lot of the program areas we have to look at now have nothing to do with accounting or finance, but they're matters like looking at your LCAP and making sure that you all adopted it and held a public hearing. There's a lot of non-financial pieces to that. And so anything that was out of compliance, we have to follow the state audit guide and report it in the audit as a finding. And the same with the federal programs. So anything in terms of federal programs, if we find anything that the district didn't do that they were supposed to do, we have to report it as a finding. So that's really the process that brings us here tonight. I would say that it's a clean audit opinion. I think that's the most important thing. You've probably all seen the report. There are some findings. I'm not going to go through each of those for the interest of time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. But I think that's as brief as I can do it for now.
Well, thank you for being here personally to present to the board. Board, do you have questions? Ms. Cowan?
I just want to say it's wonderful to have a clean audit report, and that's what we really want to have every year. So that's great news.
All right. Well,
all right. Well,
thank you very much. We appreciate your presence, as I said, and look forward to next year.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yes, we need a motion, please.
I would make a motion to accept the independent audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024.
Second it.
So we have a motion by Trustee Mason with a second by Trustee McDougall on accepting the audit report as presented. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay. Oops, I have to scroll up. And the audit for 23-24 is accepted on a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from Trustee Ochoa. Thank you. Dr. Clark, what is the next report?
The next item is going to be a budget update, and I think it's very timely. And we have Adrian Vargas who will present that presentation. So, Mr. Vargas.
All right, thank you again. So yesterday I attended the School Services of California budget workshop. And in that workshop, they reviewed the 25-26 governor's budget proposal. So I'm going to go through some of the highlights of that. And then second will be just things to consider as second interim is upon us. And we just presented first interim in December. And second interim reflects our financials as of January 31st, and we'll present that in March. So moving forward on the governor's budget proposal, the COLA for next year dropped by 0.5 point, which I think I kind of talked about at the last board meeting. So it's moving from 2.93% to 2.43%. And even yesterday, they said it could be even a little bit lower than that. But if we were to take the same assumptions from the first interim, we're looking at about a $1.7 million drop in revenue. And then the COLA actually goes up from 3.08 to 3.52. And you probably think that revenue would go up, but actually because it went down in the prior year, it resets the base of where we would actually be looking at about a $200,000 loss in the third year of the multi-year. And then moving on to new funding, the governor is proposing a $1.8 billion in what he calls a one-time student support and professional development block grant. The allocation has not been shared, but if we were to estimate, you could use 6 million ADA, so roughly $300 per ADA. But as of now, that has not been discussed. There's educator investments, literacy investments, and then I have slides that I'll share so you can kind of see just what I saw yesterday. And then in ongoing funding changes, they're looking to increase the ELOP by $435 million. So that's the Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. Looking to invest $1.5 billion for the TK ratio requirement, because in 25-26, we're moving to 10-1. And then they're looking to restore about $379 million for the Learning Recovery Block Grant. So I don't know if you can see that slide, but basically this kind of talks about the increase to the LCFF. And then it also just talks about the different calculations or the different data points that we need in calculating LCFF. And again, if you remember from the first interim, I talked about our UPP percentage jumping from on average 48% to the 55.8%. So that will be something we will adjust at second interim. And then the other slide is just basically listing out the other categorical programs that are projected to receive the COLA of 2.43%. And then moving on, this is the one-time proposal. So there's the block grant. So it can be used to address rising costs, but the state is prioritizing professional development for teachers, teacher recruitment and retention efforts, money towards career pathways and dual enrollment. And as I said, the allocation methodology has not been determined yet. And then there's the educator investments, so 150 million for teacher recruitment, another 100 million for board certification. So it would extend the National Board Certification Incentive Program for teachers that support and mentor other instructional staff in high poverty schools. And then another 40 million for literacy screening, 500 million for literacy and mathematics coaches, and then 5 million for the literacy network. And then here's a slide on the expanded learning opportunities program and the additional $400+ million. And basically that is to lower the percentage to 55% from 75%. And then here are some slides just kind of talking about the TK program. And I think most importantly is that we're moving from 12-1 in 24-25 to 10-1. So the additional funding that they're proposing is about $3,252 per ADA. So we were to, and they usually use the prior year ADA. So if we were to use our ADA, we'd be probably looking at about $3 million additional dollars to help offset the additional staff that would be needed to go to 10-1. And again, this is just a reminder, these are proposals. So as we go into second interim, if we get guidance from the county, then we'll include it. But if we have no guidance, it's just something that we can plan for in the adopted budget as we get closer to the May revise. So I included this slide because I actually didn't know this till yesterday, that the IRS in California extended the tax deadline for LA County. And they also shared a fact that if you put LA County's budget in the world economy, they'd be 22nd in the world. So I think the emphasis is that this is a large county and we're going to be relying on their tax data. And they're talking about that we probably won't know that data or full picture of what that looks like till November. So that could affect the Prop 98 and basically what the state does. So moving on to second interim considerations. I know Jeff didn't talk about some of the things in the audit report, but I'm going to. We do have an adjustment for 13.6 million for a receivable for LCFF in a prior year that we're doing cleanup on. So that will be included in the second interim report. We did have a finding for our expanding learning opportunity program of 1.06 million. I am in discussions with Jeff about appealing that, but he also said that it could be a while till we find out what that actual penalty looks like once the state controller's office goes through the audit report, approves the audit report, but we are talking about appealing that particular audit finding. And then we had some small other findings that were about 25,000. So that will be reflected in second interim. And then
And
as
I don't want to cut you off, but just, could you just, I know it says for that $1 million finding, for not offering transportation, but can you just elaborate on specifically what that was?
So specifically, that was our summer program. So we were required to offer transportation to the schools that we weren't running the programs at for our unduplicated students. I know that we tried to find information that we did that part of the requirement, but we couldn't provide that information. I think we had some transitional things happening in the summer. So it was really, we just had to offer it, and we didn't do that part. I know that in talking with Jeff, it was a common audit finding for a lot of his clients, because I think it was just because of the buildup of ELOP and, the uncertainty of how to spend those dollars and then ramping up the program. So that's why, Jeff and I are talking about how we can appeal the audit finding. But again, like he said earlier, he has an audit guide that he goes by. And if you can't provide that information, then you see the audit finding.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. So you're saying we offered the transportation, but we just didn't have documentation of it, or we didn't offer it?
So that we didn't offer it, but I guess I want to say there was conversation that we thought that we did, but we couldn't find the documentation to show that we did that. And specifically, we were talking about a survey that we put out to parents, but we couldn't identify like a question that directly said that, if you need transportation. So that's what we couldn't find. But ultimately, we didn't offer transportation to the students of the sites we weren't holding the programs at.
Thank you.
So any other questions?
Could you explain a little more about the first bullet, 13.6 million?
So in 22, 23, when we closed out the books, so we had a negative revenue sitting in one of our budget, in one of our account lines. We didn't account for that negative budget line, and it's related to a prior year revenue. And actually, when I came in as the consultant, I'd never seen that in a district. I assumed that it was a payable that we were reflecting in the following year. So we didn't count that negative revenue as part of the reconciliation when we closed out 22, 23. And then again, we had new auditors. So Nigro and Nigro are coming in, I'm coming in. And so we figured it out when we reconciled the 23, 24 year. We went back and then reconciled that negative 10.8 million should have been in a different account line. And ultimately, when we talk about the audit findings that you did read, I think the biggest thing that I took from it is just our reconciliation process. And I think, having Gustavo here as well, that's been an emphasis for us, is to, work with our staff and doing a better job at the reconciliations in general, and giving our staff a better understanding of things to look for.
Thank you.
I had a question just going all the way back to the beginning. I don't know if you were finished.
Oh, I'm not, but go ahead.
Go ahead and finish, and then I'll ask my question later.
So getting back to the second interim considerations, we'll evaluate the attendance data trends. We filed our P1 report about a week ago, and then also include our final CalPAD certification information. That also was certified in early January. And then include the updated COLAs and the multi-year projections. And as I said, input the attendance assumptions. And then we do need to start looking at the fourth year of the multi-year, because it becomes the third year of our upcoming 25-26 budget. So now I'm finished.
Okay. My question was actually back at the very beginning, when you talked about the COLA changes. If you could just clarify what you said there, that the change from 2.93% down to 2.43%, you said was a 1.7 million drop in revenue for us.
Correct.
And then the 3.08% going up to 3.52%. Can you explain that piece, how that's still a loss for us?
So because of the drop in the prior year, so every year builds off the previous year.
Okay, so the
So
compounding from the
correct,
prior year.
correct.
Got it. Thank you.
And believe me, I plugged that in 2 or 3 times just to make sure like the calculator is working right, but it makes sense when you actually start analyzing what is going on.
I have a quick question. In overall, in the presentation, did they talk, other than this issue with LA, did they talk about the effect of all the fires and what that's going to cost the state and how it'll?
So they
reflect on our
talked
budget?
about the fires in terms of property and liability insurance costs. So that's the angle that they focused on. And so, you know, we're already seeing large increases related to AB 218, which is the sexual and molestation cases that are coming back because of the pandemic that kind of stopped those cases, but they're coming back to school districts. So those are the 2 biggest liability issues facing school districts. But that's in terms of the fires, that's what they talked about, is we're going to see the effects of that in our property and liability insurance rates.
I attended the workshop with Capital Advisors on Tuesday. Another slide they had in there was the extreme increases in electrical fees. So it would be utility costs. I'm sure you're looking at it too, but it was astounding to see that on a slide that was that dramatic.
After you shared the presentation with me, so I'll have to go back and look at that one. But yes, we do analyze our utility costs.
Right.
Make adjustments.
Thank you.
I just thought of one more thing on the literacy coaches. I recall last time that the state was proposing literacy coaches. I was all excited that we'd get funding for literacy coaches, but it did not apply to our district. I think it was only the highest poverty school districts. So this one, when it mentions literacy and math coaches, it does say prioritizes high poverty schools. Was there any clarification whether that reaches us or not?
It was more of a conversation about this is a proposal. I always look at the amount of money that's going towards a program, and you know, if it's not in the billions, it's probably not affecting a lot of schools.
500 million was not very big. Yeah. Okay.
Because again, we on average, I mean, I know it's less than 6 million ADA because of lower enrollment. I think even the PowerPoint you shared with me, Linda, from Capital Advisors, they were calculating like $327 per ADA for the TK support for the ratio dropping. So that tells me they're probably using like 5.8 million or 5.9 million. But yeah, this is the proposal.
Great report.
Adrian, I want to thank you for your transparency. I want to thank you and your staff for the work that they do in managing over a $500 million budget, and to hear that we had a clean audit, and then for you to come and give an update on the meeting in Sacramento with the governor's proposal. It's very appreciated, and I'm glad that you opened up questions to this board so that so they could get answers to some of these questions that they have. So just thank you and the team.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Board report.
Yes, sir. I was waiting for it to move.
Well, last time we had them flipped, so I wondered.
So yes, it's board member reports, item 13.1. Trustee Cound, would you like to go first?
Sure. I enjoyed attending the MDBEA, the Mount Diablo Business Education Alliance Committee meeting with our new trustee as well. And I appreciated that it was at Concord High School where Tom Trowbridge did an excellent job giving us a tour and overview of his whole career pathway program and its relevance to local careers. And there was also discussion about how it relates to other courses at school. You know, sometimes people may not do well in math, but, you know, what if they're constructing that tiny house and they need to be using algebra and they can see the relevance and the rigor. And they did announce that Best Day is coming up on March 10th. 2025, and they're seeking businesses to host educators that morning. Best Day is where teachers go out into different workplaces and learn about what types of things they can bring back to their classroom about careers. So that was really exciting. I also attended the CSBA had a workshop on math today, and I'm planning to attend the immigration workshop tomorrow with CSBA as well. They mentioned at the math workshop that there was a recent update that they had of their math placement policy as they're looking at equity in and access to advanced math courses. One thing that they focused on in the workshop was looking at the new math framework is the 3 dimensions of systemic change. That are important for effective math instruction. So the 3 dimensions are an assets-based approach to instruction, active student engagement through investigation and connection, and instruction that centers cultural and personal relevance, reflecting California's diverse students. And then they also talked about 5 important components of classroom instruction. I thought it was great to see that a lot of what we've been hearing about the math instruction and the professional learning teams in our district and the types of things that they've been talking about, really, I can see how it really aligns with the new math framework, which is amazing. So I love to hear about that. They did have a representative from Compton Unified School District that talked about their recent successes in increasing math scores for students. And one of the ways that they did that was partnering with local businesses and talking about what it means for them in the workplace. And they mentioned that many parents have a fear of math, and that is irrespective of the parent's education or income. So the more that we do in terms of engaging not only students in the classroom, but the whole community when we have those kind of STEM nights or robot reveal nights, things where everyone can engage and find math playful and fun and engaging is a wonderful thing to do. And Linda Darling Hammond said that coming to the state board soon will be amended assessments to better align with the math framework. So it will be more like using formative assessment as learning. She talked about using the interim performance tasks as an applied way of supporting students. So it seems like, you know, teaching to the test is a bad thing, right? But if the test is you needing to apply your knowledge to solve problems, then it's a win-win. When you're preparing for the test, you're also preparing for how you're using math in life. So anyway, that was wonderful. And then in terms of just sort of concerns out in the community, I've definitely been hearing concerns about the safety of our immigrant students and families, and that there's a lot of fears out there. And I know we have been talking about that, and I think Dr. Clark will be talking about that tonight. But I just want to put out there that one of the really great resources for everyone in the community is standtogethercontracosta.org. To be able to look at their website, but also following them on social media. It's a great place to be able to get the right information in terms of people's rights, in terms of concerns, like you can report to them if you think that ICE has been in your neighborhood, because there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet too, where people are saying that ICE was in Concord. They were not, as far as my knowledge is on that. So trying not to stoke fears, but to go to trusted organizations like that. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McDougall.
Can I ask a question for where the URL website is for that Stand Together Contra Costa?
It's standtogethercontracosta.org. Yeah.
Great, yeah. Attended a few meetings. January 9th, went to the CTE 8th grade trade fair at Riverview High School. And of course, Linda was there and Deborah was there. And very interesting. I think you've got to grasp these kids at that age to make them understand that they've got to start thinking about their future. And these guys really had some good programs out there, and I'm glad to see that. Then on the 13th, there was the Contra Costa County School Board Association that did a joint meeting with Alameda County, and they had a panel discussion at Castro Valley Unified, and Linda was there at that. Very interesting. Of course, the topic of immigration came up, as well as things that were really pertinent to what we were discussing that night, but it just shows the level of concern that we've got in the various school districts. Then the other meeting I went to was on January 14th, which was a career pathways meeting. And I really enjoyed this. Sharice was there. Deborah was there. And it was hard to sit on those seats that they had for us in the construction shop. But seeing the tiny houses was very interesting, because we see the actual work being put to use on training these kids. And this Trowbridge fellow, impressive. We've really got an asset here, and I think we need to use him to better utilization to spread his knowledge to the rest of the schools so that they can do something similar in their schools as well. There are 4 more career pathways meetings in the next couple of weeks, so we're going to be keeping busy. And then I understand there might be a couple more added on after that. So we'll be attending a lot of these career pathways meetings, because this is an area I want to concentrate on. So thank you very much.
Trustee Nzewi.
I just want to acknowledge, or I'll just be transparent. I assume I'm not alone in the heaviness that many people feel this week, as all that we feared is happening very quickly. And so I'm just going to share a few thoughts that are not my own, but that have touched me this week and given me the permission to feel the feels, and an explanation of those feels. So this is, these are not my words, but I'm like, oh, I could have written this. It says, I think of my grandmother, my great-grandmother. I think of my elders I deeply love and ancestors I never heard of. I think of their work, their effort, their resistance. Their sacrifice got us the efforts such as the Equal Employment Act of 1965, which was just rolled back. I think of us, our initiatives, our rallies, our work. I think of my child, her future. And then this morning, this one, I actually have done workshops on in early childhood education for early ECE folks around the trauma that especially Black folks carry, that how trauma is in our blood memory. And so this morning I woke up to this message that hit me. Like, 'cause again, I'm feeling all the feels everywhere. The body never overreacts, it remembers. Memory lives in the body, as does intuition. We know what is coming both because we've lived it and because we often feel the terror of the shadows long before we're able to describe the face of the monster. There are many kinds of knowing. Keep breathing, stay near to yourself. And that's by Cole Arthur Riley. And then Ta-Nehisi Coates has a quote that said, "I did not tell you that it would be okay because I have never believed it would be okay. What I told you is what your grandparents tried to tell me, that this is your country, that this is your world, that this is your body, and you must find some way to live within all of it." And I think that's what we all have to do, is find some way to live in all of this. So what a friend reminded me today is that, well, one, like, I'm not going to live through these next years being silent or making people comfortable. I don't think I ever have, but I'm really not going to make people comfortable, like think of others' comfort in our job on this board as we move through the intense unknown. But she reminded me that our constituents wanted us. And for me, that means they wanted a pro-Black, anti-racist advocate. And we have a responsibility to our constituents, to them, and we have a responsibility to all the children in our district, and to stand on those values that elected us. We as a board stand for all children. We are in a moment in time that I expect will be judged harshly by historians. It's a shameful, embarrassing moment in our nation's history, because our nation is trying to get back to a time where, like, I think about my grandmother's stories, my grandmother was born and raised in California. So I'm like it was her mother who came to California from Tennessee. So that I can't count the generations, but that's how deeply rooted in California you are. But she told me stories of after she married my grandfather, who was from Fort Worth, Texas, her first time going to Texas. And that was her first time experiencing Jim Crow laws directly. And that's based on the many executive orders that have been signed in these past day. We're on day 3. That's like where people are celebrating. That's a time that they want to go back to. If we don't consider all of our children, then all of our children fail. I've reiterated on in this body that when we do right by Black children, everyone gets done right by. Like, everyone benefits. And the fact is, most often when good things happen to Black people, everyone benefits, but everyone else usually benefits more. And so I will continue to sit here and fight for Black children without any apology, because I know that benefits all of our children in our community. And I know that as we were all elected on our values, and the values that are going to protect, especially as has been mentioned a gazillion times and should be, the threats and the fear that many of our immigrant children and families are living under, and remembering that there's so many other communities that are living under fear and threats right now. LGBTQIA+, anybody who's not white, we're all under threat. And women, like everyone. And I just hope we still stand true to our values and serving the folks who put us in office, and standing firm on the values that they saw in us, that they want represented here unapologetically. Thank you.
Never apologize. Ms. Mason.
Thank you for that. Where I find my comfort is I go out to our schools and I watch our kids and our teachers doing what they enjoy doing so well. Yep, they're all pulling together. And as Trustee McDougall said, I attended the Careers Pathways. I continue at the one at Riverview and the one at Concord High School. I also went to my usual Java with Janice, which is coffee with the principal and the parents at Rio Vista Elementary School, which is always a good thing to do, to talk to our parents. I went to the DLAC meeting, which was well attended, and we're seeing a lot of different people, which is really kind of cool. It's really kind of changing, and they elected their new officers, and they shared information with the families, and they're starting now a listening component with the Farsi families, which just sounds like it's something that's going to be picking up some steam. I'm looking forward to that. I went to the CAC meeting, which I'm now on that committee, which is kind of nice because for years it met the first Tuesday of the month, which is when I chair the Bay Point Municipal Advisory Council meeting, so I could never go. Now I can go. And we had a very nice presentation last night about, and really good for me because I haven't been able to attend, walking the parents through and explaining the whole process when your kid's being evaluated. And there's so many terms and things that are scary for parents. And they really did a good job of breaking it down. And it's really not as scary as it sounds. We're all here to help you. We all want all children to achieve and do well. And then the other thing I did, which was the day after our last meeting, I went to the African American Black parents meetings out in Bay Point, which I always try to attend. And Dr. Francis gave a brief history of Martin Luther King, which is, I always learn something new about Dr. King every time I go. And he has little trivia in there, and it's just a different feel. It feels, it's not the commercial version you've heard. It's you get to a sense of what he was really about as a man. And so it is troubling times, and we are in a place where we've never been. So in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King, I kept my TV off all day, and I went out and worked in the garden, which I consider a service to the community, made it my day of service. And my husband thought I was a little kooky and said my little hippie self was coming back out because we planted wild seeds throughout the garden. And I said, I'm kind of like a regrowth for the LA community, which my daughter was part of that whole nightmare down there, and her house survived, but with only 3 other houses on her street. And also seeds of hope that as they grow, tomorrow will be a better day.
Thank you. Trustee Ochoa.
Last Monday, I had the opportunity to go to Riverview Middle School and speak with students to hear about their experiences. It was nice to see that many of the students in the focus groups knew each other. They enjoyed that the middle school is bigger than their elementary school, and they liked that they had different wings around the campuses. The students did express a lack of pride around the school and that they would like to see effort made to improve school spirit by making improvements to the campus, perhaps by adding new paint and more color or having cleaner facilities. The students also shared that they do not always feel staff interactions with students are as kind as positive as they hope so, but they did mention that they love their new PE teachers. Students would love to see more equipment or activities at lunch so they could play with their friends. And I agreed. They also agreed that salad bar, as an opinion, would be really nice. Students expressed interest in more electives such as culinary classes or health classes. Overall, it was a great, interesting experience because it reminded me of how difficult it was to be in middle school. And it was a great opportunity to reflect on how much kids change between middle school and high school. Thank you to Riri for giving me the opportunity to have a focus group with your students.
Very nice. Thank you. So for my report, I did attend the CSBA Region 7 panel discussion. The primary topic, in addition to immigration, were trustees and superintendents working effectively together for the good of students. And it was a packed house, and it was a great meeting. We had 3 superintendents on the panel as well as 3 trustees. So they shared information back and forth between them. On January 16th, I went to the first part of the DLAC meeting, and then yesterday I attended the Capital Advisors meeting at the County Office of Education. The Ledge Analyst's office projects a $2 billion shortfall for 25-26, with larger deficits likely in the future years. But they also cautioned that with the current fires in LA, this may change. And these current challenges will require careful consideration of program priorities as the legislature works towards a final budget by June 2025. We have to remember that all of the majority, more than a majority of the legislators are new to Sacramento at this point in time. And because they haven't been school board members, they're not very versed in public education and the challenges around it. I attended the CAC presentation online only, and I too appreciated the psych education assessment report. I think that will be a very valuable tool for our parents. And for your information, those presentations at CAC are posted on the CAC webpage for folks to download and view again. As Trustee Cound mentioned, the CSBA will be presenting the Immigration Policy and Resources webinar tomorrow, January 23rd from 10 to 11:30. You received an email so you can register and join that online webinar. Just understand that everyone is rewriting guidance that they provided a month ago. And it's, we must acknowledge and be thankful for the information that we are providing and look at multiple resources, including all of our education partners. They're doing a policy update webinar on January 28th at 11 o'clock, and it'll discuss the latest policy updates, independent study requirements, attendant recovery programs, and ethic training for board members. And then on January 29th at 10 a.m., there will be an ethical AI in education webinar. And that one will be very interesting as well. So, Dr. Clark, we're looking forward to your report.
Great, great. Well, first off, when Vice President Cowan was speaking, she spoke about two people who I'm very close with, Dr. Darren Brawley, the superintendent of Compton, who's doing fabulous things in Compton. I have worked as a sponge with this man. I picked his brain on so many things. I would love to bring some of the things that they're doing in Compton to Mount Diablo. But the negotiation may be a little too difficult. But definitely, I'm a huge admirer of what's going on there. Also, you brought up Dr. Linda Darling Hammond, someone else who I'm very close with. I'm actually serving on a panel with Dr. Hammond on February 21st. I often don't talk about myself and the things that I'm doing in the rooms that I'm in, but you know, a couple months ago, served on a panel, and I've served with this gentleman many times, but Pedro Noguero, who is the dean of the USC School of Education, Dr. Tyrone Howard, chair of the School of Education at UCLA. These are all people who are my colleagues, who I'm working with. So when stuff is happening in California public education, I know about it. And I really wish that, you know, that here in Mount Diablo, that we really could implement many of these things and many of the things that the agenda that I'm trying to get through to really put kids first. I'm in rooms that, quite frankly, no one in Mount Diablo has ever been in. And I'm extremely proud about that, but I'm extremely humble, and I often don't like to bring attention to that. But this thing that we're going to talk about immigration, I've been preparing for this since back in September. Back in September, I've been thinking about this. So I appreciate, you know, the concerns that people have, and what's our plan? What are we going to do? Like, these things they're in the works, and we knew this was coming. I knew it was coming, and so I just wanted to start off with that you know, you guys should feel confident that you have someone at the helm in this district that is connected and that knows what's going on and knows how to navigate these spaces. And I'm not going to do something that puts the district at risk, or puts our students at risk, or puts our employees at risk. With that, I'll start my presentation. First of all, we have a lot that's wrapped up in these LCAP goals. And I know I go over them every single week, and some people just gloss over and just listen, but these words have meanings. you have to listen to what people say they're going to do. And when I say that all students will receive a high quality education in a safe and welcoming environment, why would I veer away from a safe environment right now? Why would we do that? Why would I open up our schools to strangers to have access to our kids? We have people who come to our schools who are there to pick their kids up and don't have the proper paperwork, and it never reaches the classroom. So the teacher doesn't have to worry about that because the folks in the office are dealing with this, whether it's our principals, whether it's our office managers, whether it's our site security, they are on these things before it ever even reaches a classroom. So I take these words extremely, extremely serious, and I want our district to live by this, but so often it is a struggle to get everyone on the same page in living up to the commitment that we've made to our students and to our families. So these are our 3 goals, and really if we did all 3 of these goals here with fidelity, we really would be seeing the outcomes of our students that that are so desperately needed. But we call some things out, right? And so we have our focal scholars, our African-American students, our foster youth, students experiencing homeless, students with IEPs, multilingual students will experience culturally responsive. That means that we're aware of what's culturally responsive. We're culturally responsive to the needs of our communities. So as these things are going on, and it's like, oh, well, why aren't we talking with our community? Why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? This is what we have been practicing. This is what the boots on the ground, our administrators, many of our teachers, our social work specialists, right? We employ social work specialists who are doing home visits, who are on the ground floors, working with families and seeing what they need and seeing how we can be supportive. So, of course, this is our visual, equity, opportunity, unity. So immigration update. District and school site protocols. As I've said before, we don't need to create protocols. We have protocols. Anyone who shows up at our schools and wants to see a kid, anyone, has to be on the emergency form. Unless one of our students is related to an ICE agent cannot come to our schools and request one of our students or any documentation that we have on our students. If they do show up and ask for that, then our protocol is not to walk them down to the class, to the student, and turn the student over, or to call the teacher and say, send the student up. Our protocol is that they have to come to the district office, where either I or our attorney or a designated individual will look at the paperwork that they have and will then make a determination of what's next. So we're not going to be having these battles in the front offices of our schools if it comes to that point. So yesterday, I was at one of our high schools. I was with about 30 students. I was there with 2 police officers from one of our local police departments. I was there with the Contra Costa County public defender who specializes on immigration, and he was there with one of his assistants, and I was there with 2 school employees, and we had about 30 students, all students who were concerned about what is going on, and we shared with them our perspective of what's happening, and we answered their questions. My message to them was that any student that walks through our doors, any student, that means students with an IEP, that means students who are LGBTQ, that means students who are extremely wealthy or extremely living in poverty. We are going to accept and serve those students where they are when they come into our schools. And I assured them that we have had these systems in place all year and for years since I've been here, where we believe in having safe campuses. So we shared, Stand Together Contra Costa County, we shared cards with the students. The public defender shared how students should respond to ICE agents who may stop them on the street, come to their house, shared resources for their families, And then we answered some really heartbreaking questions that these students had about their situations or fears that they had. So the other thing that was shared was if you see ICE agents, a number to call for information there. So the same people who are doing the event in Pittsburgh were at this meeting that I held yesterday. And I believe we don't always have to be first. It may not be a good idea to say all of these people who need help with immigration come to this one spot. So Pittsburgh is doing it, and I've advertised that in the Friday letter. And I say, until I'm blue in the face every single time, if you want information about this district, go to the Friday letter. It has all the information you need to know. There's all kinds of campaigns out there and things happening and misinformation out there, and there's Facebook and all this stuff out there. If you want to know what's happening in the district, go to the Friday letter. And in my first sentence in the Friday letter, I talk about a resource for immigrant families and a support system that will be in our Friday letter every single week. So you want information, there's where it's going to be. I also publicize the Pittsburgh event where I do, if we have families or we do have people who just want to go and learn, and we are going to have people there so we can see what is going on, what questions are coming up. Is it a safe space? Is it something that we want to bring to our district? But principals at their school sites have contacted me and they want to hold their own informational meetings because the person who has the most trust with our families is not me, right? I'm the superintendent, I'm central office. It's the principals. It is the social work specialists. It's folks like that. I got folks like Catherine Fireman and her team, Rosie Reed and her team. Those are folks who are on the front line with kids who families trust and see as a trusted person. I show up in a suit, I show up in an ID. Some people may be intimidated by that. Then they meet me and they see, oh my goodness, this guy has our best interest in mind, and I can quickly warm them over. But I'm going to defer to the professionals in this area. So again, district and school site protocols, we have those down. They're down. Our principals have all the information that they need. This stuff should never, ever reach the classroom. And quite frankly, I do not want our 1,800 teachers giving different messages. So the message needs to come through the office, through the principal's office. They have the hot off the press from the attorney general, from the governor, from who they need. And I will say about this whole thing, I have my fingers crossed that we're not going to have incidents at our schools. This type of rhetoric is meant to stoke fear and anxiety in people who do not have resources. I mean, that is essentially what it is. And I talk about that. I talk about that as a tenant in running this district. I don't believe in blaming, and I don't believe in making excuses. And oftentimes, when things aren't going well in society, we need someone and something to blame. Our immigrants are the ones who have the target on them, and they are the ones who are being blamed. Same, I'm not going to get into LGBTQ, that's the next slide, but LGBTQ is the other group. Students who fall under LGBTQ are the most at risk in all educational systems. They are the most at risk. They have the highest rate of suicide. They have the highest rate of drug abuse. They have the highest rate of abuse. They have the highest rate of depression, and they're the targets. So it's a bigger level. And if you're just waking up today going, oh my goodness, there's a problem, we need to put together a plan, I don't know where you've been for the last some time. This didn't just happen this year. It didn't just happen over the last few years. This has been going on. And it's an unfortunate human element that you blame the weak and defenseless. I'm sorry to have to like really break it down, but that unfortunately is what it comes down to. So we've done what we needed to do. We have a resolution that's already on the books. We already have safe havens at our schools. I know that the removal has happened and things like that, but the safe haven was just, again, it's just a statement, right? The real things are our protocols which stand up. Title IX update. This last year, or last year and a half, within Title IX, sexual orientation and gender and sexual orientation, LGBTQ, then was proposed to fall under Title IX. Okay, so there was this big pushback from many states who said we're not going to adopt those regulations. So we just had a judge in Kentucky who overturned that thing. And the way the courts work is it came up, it got challenged in Kentucky, and it's a federal judge. And this judge removed the protections within Title IX for LGBTQ and trans, right? And sexual orientation. So we're still committed to Title IX. We just have to go back to the 2020 status. This is all politics, right? And so we are still going to protect our individuals. LGBTQ is a protected class. If they are being harassed, if they are not afforded the rights that they have, then we're going to deal with it. But again, LGBTQ students and trans students are the most vulnerable in our system. So I just want that to sink in, that we've all taken an oath to support our students, to make sure that students have what they need. And again, it doesn't matter if they come from extreme privilege, or it doesn't matter if they come from extreme poverty. We still have to support them. It doesn't matter. This is not our fight. These are politicians. These are stuff that's going on. This is a fight for power and stuff like that. But as long as we support our students, we're doing the right things. I don't know anything about recruiting or brainwashing or any of that stuff. I don't know anything about that. I just know when students show up at our door, we have an obligation to support them. And that's what I'm here to ensure that we do. And I really wish that we didn't get all the pushback that we get when we try to do that. Now to some happier things. That goal where all students receive, and we talk about preparing them for college and career. I am a huge advocate of our College Now program. And here is an administrator from or teacher from our College Now program who is sharing with students, trying to let these students know what options are out there. We have an opportunity. You know, the research says, and I like to make decisions on research. I don't make them on feelings or things like that. I really do like proven research. The research says if you have a high school student who takes one college course, the likelihood of them graduating from college and going on rises hugely. So why wouldn't we want to provide that to as many students as possible? When we try to do that, we get cease and desist letters to stop that, right? We have people who fight that. So I'm going to scream from the rooftop that we need to continue to provide the College Now opportunities for our students. So because College Now is for those middle of the road students who are kind of trying to figure things out. And what a great opportunity to build up their self-esteem, to give them a head start and get them on a college campus and college courses with their own students their age and stuff like that. So I'm sharing this picture here, College Now presentation at one of our high schools. Here we have counselors who are visiting our 8th graders over at Sequoia Middle School. Again, preparing them for that transition from middle school to high school, because we want that to be smooth. And I'm not saying we want every last one of our kids to go to college. That's not for everybody. But what's the other option? And the other option is college and career. And we've already heard tonight about many of the things that we offer in career, but it really starts as we get ready to celebrate the month of the counselor, right? It really starts with that conversation with those 8th graders and their counselors, and then continues on into high school as students are trying to find their way and find what contribution they want to make. As we talked about the fair, this is a student that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's a torch in his right hand. Am I right on that? And that is some copper piping in his left hand. And this is an 8th grade student in our district who's getting like hands-on. Now, what we want is for this student to go, oh my goodness, this is great. I'm going to show up to school tomorrow if I can do this. This is the same thing that happens with our students who play sports. This is the same thing that happens with our students who do choir. This is the same thing that happens with our students who do debate or do programming. That's why we have all these programs to really lock students in. So we're going to continue to support programs such as this. This is a CTE pathway at Mount Diablo High School when the new principal who I placed there, and there was resistance to me placing him there, but he's doing a fine job there. But when I was visiting the school one day, he brought me into this big empty room and said, "We want to bring back auto shop." And I said, "Go for it, let's do it." So this is auto tech. They don't, I'm not sure how functioning it's not up to par like the Concord High School auto shop that they have there, but hopefully we will get an auto shop at Mount Diablo High and have it thriving and things like that so students can learn. They have, in the community college, they have auto tech programs where students can go in there and make 6 figures leaving those programs learning how to work on cars, because cars nowadays, it's not like you're getting your hands all greasy and stuff with wrenches. You're on computers and stuff doing things. So we want to continue to support these different pathways. We talk about highly qualified culturally provision and responsive staff. A very proud moment of mine, one of the, I go to, as you guys know, I go to all sorts of different conferences, but my favorite conference to go to is the Every Child Counts conference that AXA puts on. And it's really geared towards special education and student services. I'm one of the only superintendents that attends, just so we know the person who's leading this district, where his heart is and where his focus is. But this is just part of our team. We had double the amount of people who were there, but was just very proud of, we have social work specialists there. We got Dr. Stuckey Smith there. We got Jessica Pozos. We got Linda Pete there. I mean, these are people who are doing amazing things for our, not only just for our students, but for our communities as a whole. And then just to show you, so this is just the program description of the session that Dr. Stuckey Smith did, and Linda Pete was on here, and other folks. But again, join veteran, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but join veteran administrators from the California Association of Pupil Personnel Administrators, so student services, as they share their journey navigating the new and current frontier of student services. And it goes on just to talk about those things that we talked about serving our students. So very proud of them. This was Jessica Pozos. We're doing work in the mental health field in this district that no one else in the whole state of California in public schools is doing. We're one of the first who are doing it. And our own Jessica Pozos, again, shared what we're doing, where we are actually, this is bringing in large revenues for our district, we're being innovative in this space. You give us the rules, let us figure it out. We got the folks on board who can do this, and we're innovating, and where folks are learning from us. And we got to keep Jessica, we got to keep Pozos from the state snatching her away from us and having her run like the state program, which is a real fear of ours of that happening. But again, the resistance is just, I just can't get over it. Our own Rosie Reed, 2 sessions she worked on, and again, it's all about supporting those foster kids in our systems, where as times get tough in society, then people find that they are unable to take care of their kids. And we're not here to blame them. We're not here to lecture them. We're not here to go back and find out why and what happened. The only thing we need to focus on are those kids are now ours. What are we going to do with those kids? How are we going to support them? And here we have experts on our staffs, on our teams. As I'm looking in the audience there, we have experts in so many different areas in this district. And it really just breaks my heart sometimes when you just get some of the narrative that's out there, or we have to go through the types of things that we have to go through just to provide basic services for our students. So I know I'm on one tonight, but these are trying times, because I go and I stand in front of our students and talk to them and listen to their fears and listen to the questions that they have. And I told those students, I said, you know what? I said, I am, just like I said in the New York Times article, I said, it is disappointing that we have to have this conversation. You all in this room are juniors and seniors. We should be talking about graduation. We should be talking about work after high school. We should be talking about going to schools. And you all are worried, not necessarily for themselves. They're worried for their parents, for relatives, for friends, for community people and stuff like that. That's a huge burden on our students. So anyway, I am just, super excited about the work we're doing. Here goes, and I've heard before people say they don't like the Promethean boards, but every time I come up with pictures of like teaching taking place, Promethean boards are involved, right? So these are actually special education students who are in special day classes who are just being taught by our wonderful teachers, by wonderful special ed staff, really highly qualified, responsive staff will create safe environments for our students. Like, where did we ever think that we weren't creating safe environments? I don't know where that rumor ever started. It must be Facebook or something like that. But we're creating safe spaces. I'm open to questions, but I will say just real quickly is that life happens, and it's unfortunate. This is tough work that we are all doing, and it would be great if we lived in a place where the tough work was rewarded and recognized and supported. But instead, like, again, we just want to focus on creating safe spaces for our kids and teaching it, but we have to worry about all this other stuff, and that's just not helpful for us. So again, athletic protections. Yes, when I talked about Title IX, I did have athletics up there. Yes, all right. We are committed to creating safe spaces on our athletic fields and making sure that males and females have equal opportunities, equal support, equal resources to compete and to get hooked into the beauty of high school athletics. And we will, if the adults who we employ won't make it happen, then lawsuits will make it happen. And that's what's happening now. So we are going to ensure that it's going to happen at all of our high schools. So with that said, any questions about our plan for dealing with ICE or dealing with things like that? What scares me the most, and this is what I told the students, is that a family member gets picked up and then our students don't have anyone to take care of them. Right. That's what scares me the most. So again, our office managers are updating emergency forms, principals are reaching out to folks. We want to make sure, and part of the message from Stand Together were for immigrant families to come up with a plan. This is our plan in case something happens. Again, I'm not here to judge how folks are here. What I'm here to do is take care of those kids who walk through our doors. Right. And that's what my responsibility is. But unfortunately, things spread out. So we want families come up with a plan if this affects you. And we also have to be cautious that we have 29,000 students in this district. Not every one of our families is impacted by this. There's lots of families who don't have to worry about this, and this isn't a concern of theirs. But there are some that are, and if there are some that are, then it's our business and we're going to support them.
Thank you for your passion, Dr. Clark.
I thought I had some facts back. I also factual passion, right?
Right.
Because I'm not just spewing stuff,
right?
Spewing facts, and I laid out the groundwork at the very beginning. Our state board of education president, right, is someone who's in my cell phone and who I present regularly with and learn from. And when I have questions, I don't go to Facebook, I go to her.
Trustee Nzewi.
You said you were on one, and I was going to say, oh, you said they're going to learn today. That's what you said. And I want to thank you for all of that. And us, and I know why people like you, people like me have to approach our work in humility. There's reasons that other people may not have to endure, but just to protect yourself. But we need you to not, I've said it before, like, no, we don't need your humility. We need people to know and to learn today who you are, Dr. Adam Clark, formerly Mr. Clark, teacher of little people. People forget that you were a teacher of little ones, not of big ones even. You love the littles. And I I appreciated your presentation, and all I really wanted to say was I wish Mr. Willie Mims was here to see that. That's what I wanted to say.
As we remember Willie. Thank you.
I just want to also say thank you, Dr. Clark, for sharing that and being clear that we are going to protect all of our students regardless. And, you know, when you were just talking about the athletics and you said males or females, I assume you also meant and non-binary students as well will have access to our athletics and to everything at our school sites. I just want to say to, you know, to the community as a whole, we do, I feel like we have the policies in place. We've trained all of our staff. Everyone needs to know just very clearly, if someone comes to our campus, they're going to be sent to the district office to be able to, that's the first place that they're going to have to go. So that's the big answer for everyone to know. We tried, I think, actually, I wasn't on the board when you guys did the Safe Haven resolution back in 2016, 17. But this is posted under board policies on the MDUSD website. And it was a way of sort of trying to consolidate all of the different policies to basically clarify that main issue, that if someone comes to our campus asking for a student or student information, they're going to be sent to the district office, not to the classroom. But if there are suggestions from the community or advocates about ways that we could improve our communication on this, you know, I would say that we're open to revising this if there's ways that we can strengthen it in some way, given changes that have happened. We can work on that. But thank you, Dr. Clark, for having these policies in place from the beginning. And thank you to our board who passed this originally back in 2016. And it still stands. And we just continue to clarify and refine everything that we need to do to protect our students from all kinds of things out there in the world. So thank you.
All right.
One more thing. I'll get it. Sorry. I laughed at your Facebook comment, but now I want to say something because so much that as a parent in my school's Facebook group, there's so much like, oh my gosh, did anybody just ask? Like things blow up to something that is so untrue because someone gets mad at something that they think is happening. And now everyone believes it when you can just ask. Everyone is a human. Dr. Clark is human. Your principals and teachers are human. The office lady is human. I just use that because that's what you call them when you're a little kid. Like the yard duty is human. Like just ask. Don't let the stupid Facebook be your main source of information about what is going on at your school, in your classroom, at your district. Ask the actual people who actually do the thing, because we would save ourselves a whole bunch of heartache. I see it. I saw it last week at school. Thank you.
That in consideration.
Thank you. All right. Are we ready to move on to the consent agenda? Items approved under the consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be approved or adopted by a single motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. However, any item may be removed from the consent agenda upon the request of any member of the board and acted upon separately. Are there any items that you would like to pull and consider separately?
Yeah, I would like to pull 15.4 and 15.5.
Any further items?
Madam President, I move to approve the consent agenda except for items 15.4 and 15.5.
Second.
So we have a motion by trustee Cound with a second by trustee McDougall to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 15.4 and 15.5, which will be considered separately. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
And the motion is adopted to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 15.4, 15.5 on a 5-0-0-0 vote with support of trustee Ochoa. I'm speaking slowly so that our staff can prepare those two items. They're there already. Okay.
On the first one, it's about getting a group to do sports with our after-school programs, which is good. Like to see them having physical activity, but they say they're doing this with no, they don't need to be fingerprinted because they're not going to be having contact with kids. So I'm wondering if is it a video they're going to watch? Because I don't really know how you would do sports with kids if you're not going to have contact with them.
So we have the Samantha Allen is going to come on up and address that.
Okay, thank you. So trustee Mason, actually our contractor checked the wrong box. And so we have had them update. I have a copy of it. We received it today with the appropriate box. We also have a list of names of those that will be on campus and that they have been cleared through the DOJ.
Okay, and just stay there.
I'll stay here.
Because the next one was simply, it was for the Discovery Education, and they chose to check neither box. And I figured that was just an error because they gave us the workman's comp form, but no.
Yes, and to answer your question, because I think did you ask us about fingerprinting in that?
Well, because they didn't pick either one.
Correct. And so there is a component to that contract where the teachers are getting PD. That's the only human interaction.
Okay.
And then the other component is fully online.
Okay.
And so it's like an app, and it responds, like iReady or any of those other programs we have. So so we will fix all those things, and I apologize for that. They came across my desk and I didn't see that, so I apologize for that. Thank you.
Probably have a few other things you're doing too.
No. Thank you.
I move to, which one are we on? 1.1. I move to approve the Hocali Middle School Sports Agreement for the CARES Expanded Learning Opportunity Program.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by trustee Nzewi with a second by trustee Mason on the newly renumbered 16.1, which is a sports agreement with the CARES Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. Any further discussion? Trustee Ochoa.
Yes.
Thank you for being prepared always.
And thank you, Trustee Mason, for always looking out for the safety of our kids.
Every time I had anybody come on when I did after school, they had to be fingerprinted. So I'm on it.
Oh, I'm sorry. The motion is adopted 5-0-0-0 with support from trustee Ochoa. 16.2.
I move to approve the contract with Discovery Education with Mount Diablo Unified School District for the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by trustee Nzewi with a second by trustee Mason for 16.2 Mount Diablo Unified Discovery Education for the Expanded Learning Opportunity Program. Trustee Ochoa.
Yes.
Thank you. And that is approved on a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from our student trustee. So now we are going to move.
I have this one, President Mason. It's a review potential acknowledgement of the additional successor agreement proposal from the Mount Diablo Education Association. Is that Mr. Sheehy?
Good evening again. So tonight, as you know, the original Sunshine Agreement came before the board at the December 18th meeting. At our first negotiation session of this year on January 8th, Medea did share with us the Sunshine Letter that they would like to sunshine an additional article, which is why it's coming back tonight to allow the board to acknowledge it and also to inform the public that they are opening Article 21, Teachers on Special Assignment. And so tonight it is in front of you just to acknowledge receipt that we have received the Sunshine proposal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheehy.
Do we know if this is the last one to be sunshined or if there are more coming?
So throughout the negotiation process, either side can sunshine additional articles. So at this point in time, it has not been indicated to me that there will be any more, but I cannot guarantee that there will not. And that comes from either side. Either side has the opportunity to sunshine articles throughout the process if they have not been sunshined originally.
Hadn't all the articles been sunshined? Didn't they open up everything?
There are quite a few articles open. I would have to go back and look and see if every single article, we are very close to every single article in the contract being sunshined along with the different appendices.
Thank you. Do we have a public comment card on this particular item? No card? All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
Madam President, I move to acknowledge the additional successor agreement proposal from Mount Diablo Education Association.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by trustee Count with a second by trustee Mason regarding the additional successor agreement proposal from Medea. This is item 18.1. Further discussion? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And that proposal is acknowledged on a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from trustee Ochoa. Review and potential approval of the school plans for student achievement. Dr. Clark?
Yes. Ms. Filios has many talents as I get to know her a little better, but she represents DMA, and so we have Diablo Managers Association. So we meet regularly, and I get to learn a great deal about her and many of the talents that she has with organizing people. But she has a very special talent for understanding Title I and understanding our school site plan. So anyway, I would like to introduce Christina Filios to present this item, unless Samantha Allen is going to join her, or you're going to present Christina.
I'm simply the Vanna White this evening. Board President Mayo, Dr. Clark, and trustees, I am so proud to stand in front of you today and recognize the teams before us, or that are here with us today, but also the teams at home tonight or at events this evening who put together these amazing single plans. Today, or this week, I'm sorry, Christina and I worked on a short presentation just to realign us with our goals and talk a little bit about the process so we have a really great understanding about how our principals and our site councils and our teams at schools, our community members come together to create these plans for improvement and for intervention support, curriculum, all the things that we see, wonderful things we see happening at our schools, truly are grounded in these documents. So we hope tonight that you will take action to approve our single plan. So here's Christina.
Thank you so much, Board of Trustees. Thank you, Dr. Clark, for that very nice introduction. I'm going to just move this out of my way because one of my talents is not grace. So I don't want to fall off
But
the
you can
podium.
move furniture.
I can a little bit. We'll see how I do with this clicker too. All right. So I just wanted to give a little background on what the SIPSA is. And then tonight I'll also just be showing the connection between our LCAP and our SIPSAs. Just again, so we can all have a common understanding and build from that together. So what is a SIPSA? It stands for School Plan for Student Achievement. If you've been around for a while, we used to call them single plans for student achievement. So they've changed names. It is an annual plan, and it describes the goals, actions, services, and expenditures to support positive student outcomes at the site level. They are monitored, evaluated, and approved by the school site council at each site, and we receive input from our educational partners at each site to create these plans. They include LCFF supplemental and Title I funds if the school site receives Title I funding, and they follow what we call a cycle of continuous improvement. So when we talk about a cycle of continuous improvement, what we're really talking about is identifying what's working and what needs to change, developing a sound plan that includes either more effective or evidence-based practices in the plan, or may continue those practices that have been effective. We implement the plan, and then we use data to monitor the outcomes of the plan. So this is a graphic that kind of shows the cycle that we go through with the plan. We follow this exact cycle with our LCAP as well. So if you think about the current plan, obviously that's where we've clarified our goals, we've identified how we will measure the plan, and then we actually implement the current plan. That's the do. And so we actually do the actions and strategies. We accomplish those, we implement those, and then we study the plan. So before creating the new plan, we do our data monitoring and our annual updates. We go back, we look at what our measurable outcomes were, our goals. We see if we met those measurable outcomes. We evaluate the effectiveness of the strategies from the old plan, and then we act and adjust. And that's how we create the new SIPSA or the new LCAP as well. So you will often see this called the plan, do, study, act, or adjust cycle. That's the cycle of continuous improvement. So when the LCAP came into play at the state level, the state really consciously designed the LCAP and USIPSA templates to work together so that those plans are more integrated and really talking to one another, both directions, from the LCAP to the SIPSAs and the SIPSAs to the LCAP. Again, the LCAP is a 3-year plan and the SIPSAs are annual plans, but they have many common elements. So you'll see that list here. So in both plans, you'll see these common elements, again, following the continuous cycle of improvement. So in the LCAP, the focus is on district-wide needs and strategies, focused on all students as well as our unduplicated student groups. We fund contributing actions. That's what we call the actions that are aimed at improving outcomes for our data-identified student groups and our unduplicated pupils. And we measure our progress towards our goals over the 3-year plan. At the SIPSA, the focus is on site-level needs and strategies, again, focused on all students as well as unduplicated student groups. And the SIPSA outlines how funding will be spent to benefit all students as well as targeting specific student needs through data. And again, we measure progress through goals. So you'll see they're very similar in their structure, but their scope is very different in terms of site level versus district level. Both the LCAP and the SIPSAs talk about base and supplemental funding. So in terms of base funding, we're talking about funding that's calculated based on total student enrollment and is a contribution to all students. And when we talk about supplemental funding, we're talking about funding that is calculated based on an unduplicated student count. Unduplicated students being our English learners, low-income students, and foster youth. And this is a concentration of funds to support strategies above and beyond the base to meet our student needs as indicated in our data. And just as a note, many of the strategies and actions that are targeted to all students do directly benefit the needs of unduplicated pupils. So I wanted to give you an example of that so we could see that thread from the LCAP through to the SIPSs. So our LCAP goal 1, all students will receive a high quality education in a safe and welcoming environment with high expectations and rigorous instruction in the California state standards that prepare them for college and career. All students will demonstrate growth meeting standards in English, English language development, and mathematics. So in our LCAP, our strategy action 1.4 are our social emotional learning initiatives. And this strategy includes our counselors, our MTSS professional development, our social work specialists, some of the personnel we heard Dr. Clark talking about earlier that help create that safe and welcoming school environment, our wellness centers, and contracts with community-based organizations. This, in our LCAP, is a contributing action serving unduplicated students, and it is also an LEA or district-wide action that addresses their needs. So we are targeting all students in this strategy, and yet we know that it is also meeting the needs of our unduplicated students. So then if we take that to the SIPSA level, what might that look like? So one of our sample SIPSAs is from Monty Gardens Elementary School. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank Principal Nzeo from Monty Gardens for being here, and also Vice Principal Josie Kirkland from Mount Diablo High, representing all the proud principals and SIPSA teams in our district. So Monty Gardens, goal 1 in their SIPSA says all Monty Gardens students will receive a high quality education as a result of the collaborative efforts of the school community's work at becoming an authorized international baccalaureate world school. All students will be ensured a safe and welcoming environment with equitable high expectations and attention to being an inclusive and international minded school with equitable access to technology. And all students will be instructed to meet the California state standards, thus preparing them to be college and career ready. So we see a clear connection between our district goal 1 and Monty Gardens SIPSA goal 1, which is what we do expect from our schools. The measurable outcomes in Monty Gardens SIPSA goal 1 include data for English learners and low-income students who are unduplicated pupils. So we're monitoring their progress specifically as part of this goal. And then in this goal, strategy 1.7 is an elementary school counselor who will provide individual and small group support and support the Social Superheroes program. This funding is for an additional day of counseling service, social emotional materials. So the site will be using their LCFF supplemental funds to fund this. Is the goal and strategy aligned with the LCAP? Yes. Is it funded with LCFF supplemental monies? Yes. Is it a site-wide action that addresses the needs of unduplicated students under all students? Yes. And is it in addition to the base program? Is it above and beyond what they're receiving? Yes. So I hope that that helps just to establish some understanding of how our SIPSAs are tied to our LCAP and how some of the funding in the SIPSA might be used to address the needs not only of all students, but also of our students with additional needs or identified as unduplicated.
Questions? Motion?
Thank you so much. That was very helpful, I think, for our community members as well to understand how the plans that they're making at the site level on the site council connect with the overall district-wide plans, as well as the funding system is quite complex in California, and the LCFF, local control funding formula, is a whole thing to understand, in and of itself. And I know we, as a board, are always looking to make sure that our LCFF supplemental funds are really targeted towards the students that they're intended to support. So that was a very helpful explanation. I just wanted to clarify with the with LCFF supplemental, it comes to our district based on the number of students that sort of qualify for that. So then from the district level out to the school sites, I assume different school sites have different amounts based on the number of students.
The
that
per
qualify.
pupil amount is the same, but it is calculated based on their qualifying unduplicated counts per CalPATS. So they receive that money. So you'll see that some schools that have higher numbers of unduplicated students will have higher amounts of LCFF supplemental in their subsets.
Thank you.
I move to approve the school plans for student achievement.
I will second.
So for the school plans for student achievement, item 18.2, we have a motion by trustee Nzewi with a second by trustee Cound. Any further discussion?
I would just say for parents or anyone out at a school site that has, ideas about how to improve their SIPSA, I appreciate what you were saying too about the Plan, Do, Study, Act. These are just because we're voting on them tonight doesn't mean like now we're stuck forever. It's a constant process. And if you join your school site council and have that conversation with the other teachers and parents and the principal, it's always an ongoing improvement. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Oh, there we go. Finally, you had us.
Sir, the school plans for student achievement have been adopted on a 5-0-0 vote with support from our student trustee Ochoa. And special thank you for the presentation and to our principals for being present and their representatives for being present. It's important. And you never know when we're going to have a crazy question. Thank you.
Thank you.
We got you out of basketball duty tonight, Josie? I know. No, I'm joking. Okay, wrestling match. I know,
Wrestling.
right?
Okay. 18.3, Dr. Clark, changes to board policy.
I'm so honored to say this. I don't know if I've said this, but our Title IX coordinator is going to present this item. Yes.
Well, welcome.
Let me just say, she does so much work behind the scenes. She meets with so many families, students, principals, and stuff like that. We are really
Since he's
fortunate.
elevating me, I might as well do
Yeah,
it
we are really
physically.
fortunate to have her. So thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Board. Dr. Clark. As Dr. Clark mentioned earlier, he set this up for me. He should really be presenting this on my behalf, but based on a federal court decision in Kentucky, we had to revert back from our 2024 regulations, Title IX, to 2020. So we did that through board policy to make sure our policies align with current Title IX regulation. So that stands before you for approval.
So it's in the hands of the board. I hear that coming. Board members, do you have questions? And we need a motion.
I move that the board approve to restore the BPs and ARs applying to the 2020 Title IX regulations as attached heretofore.
Allowing no, the problem is that this sucks, like, and that it's awful, and that a freaking judge in Kentucky can rule the land, and we know that's wrong. And I know that Suzanne is sitting there like, you all have to second this because we do. Right, because we have to follow the freaking law, or they're just going to take away all of our funding. Like these are the things that are hanging over school districts from today forward. It's dumb. It's ridiculous, and I'm like, this is why it's taking so long for someone to make a motion and someone to second it, because it's so wrong, and they're forcing our freaking hand. And so, with all disrespect to this change, I second it.
So we have a motion by a lot of emotion, a motion presented with a lot of emotion by Trustee Mason and with severe resistance by Trustee Nzewe regarding the changes to board policy and administrative regulations relating to Title 14, 9, I'm sorry, of the, it's my eyes, of the Education Amendments Acts of 1974. There further discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. So this was decided by a judge in Kentucky.
Yes, sir?
Is it subject to appeal so that we might have, if it gets appealed and rejected, do we have to enact this again?
I can answer that question. So it would be subject to appeal, but given the new administration that decides whether or not it is appealed, it is unlikely that it will be appealed.
So we're safe to say that this is going to be permanent then? And we won't have to go back and revisit this?
Okay, now I'm speaking. So, well, don't make me talk that much. So I appreciate that. I would say for the foreseeable future, this is the Title IX regulations of 2020 are what we are required to enforce. Could it potentially change in the future? Yeah.
Who knows?
And but this is what the law currently is.
And I guess at least we have the Title IX of 2020. It could, that
yes.
could also be revoked at some point in time. So I suppose
It takes a very long time.
on the bright side.
To issue. Typically, it takes a very long time to issue regulations.
And just to add, the 2020 regulations were passed by the Trump administration.
Okay.
So it's unlikely that they will get revoked.
My response, Mr. McDougall, is that if it was reversed again, you would see it on this agenda very quickly. At least I would be making the recommendation to the superintendent that it be placed on the agenda. Right. Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
And this is adopted with a 5-0-0-0 vote with support from our student board member, Trustee Ochoa, reluctantly. All right. 18.4. We have some other board policies. Dr. Clark.
Yeah, so these are just coming back for approval. We brought them out before for info, and now they're coming back as action.
I move to approve updates to board policy and administrative regulation 4218, dismissal, suspension, disciplinary action.
Second that.
So we have a motion by Trustee Nzewi with a second by Trustee Mason regarding updates to board policy and ARs 4218, dismissal, suspension, disciplinary action. Further discussion? Trustee Ochoa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. So the motion is adopted on board policy 4218 with a 5-0-0-0 vote and support from Trustee Ochoa. We don't need a meeting extension, hallelujah. And let's see. I'm sorry, I printed this agenda out in large font so I would be able to see it. Are there future agenda items for the board consideration? None at this time. I believe we have some documents to sign. And with that, I adjourn the meeting at 8:56 p.m.